Welcome to our Thursday exclusive. Currently once per month. We have switched to once per month exclusives to talk about all things Build Capable XCL. And today we're going to be talking about how to monetize your links, how to monetize your course content. And this is a question that has come up quite a bit since we launched because there's a whole bunch of folks that create courses and create content that want to sell it. And they've asked us, how do we do that if there's no platform? So if I can't validate that someone is logged in and has paid for this thing, then how would that work? And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we do this without an LMS? And what's interesting about that question is about, I guess it's, oh my goodness, it's probably been 10 years now. About 10 years ago, Brian Dussablon and Sean Putman did a session on how to deliver training without an LMS. And at the time, we were working on a program called LearnX API, which is a certificate program that's Build Capable that our organization sells that helps teach people about XAPI. And at that time, that entire program was built in WordPress. So the program was built in WordPress. The content consisted of lots of different types of e-learning elements throughout the program, but all of it was hosted on WordPress. And so in order to get access to it, you essentially created a WordPress account, and then you could have access to the information. And you could always put a paywall in front of that. So we wanted to talk about how some of this isn't new. The thing that XCL is going to add to that is the tracking, right? It's all of the tracking of the stuff after they buy it. And so we want to talk about today, how do you monetize it? And then why would you use XCL once they pay for it? So what's the purpose of even doing that at all? Today, I am joined by Kareen and Rob, and we're going to share some of the things that we've been working on. And I'm going to actually turn this over to Kareen to walk us through what are some things that we need to do today to talk a little bit about monetization.
And I feel this topic is near and dear to my heart right now because we are in the process of launching a course on a new venture, and we have some free things that we were allowing people to get access to and using XCL to wrap and track the free items. But we are launching our first paid piece of content, and it has been a learning experience to go through the process. So I'm excited to share today. We did not use WordPress. We used Canva because I am not a designer.
Well, we is because Christy is here with us today. Talk about a little bit about what you and Christy are working on.
Yeah. So Christy and I are building out a consulting business. We have been doing consulting actually previously, but I have a book coming out this fall, Building the Skills-Based Organization. I shouldn't stumble over my own book's name. But we have also been working with organizations on building AI strategies, not so much the tools, not so much the nitty-gritty, but how do you think about evolving your business and focusing on the transformation leveraging AI. And so we've been working with a bunch of different companies, and we decided we needed to put some of this in writing and make it a little bit more accessible for folks because we need to scale ourselves and our time. And so last week we pushed up but have not been advertising our first white paper, which is an AI maturity model. And then today we are hopefully launching after this webinar our course that is a companion piece to that model and tells people, organizations, how to use it.
Are you selling this course?
We are selling this course.
That might have something to do with what we're talking about today.
So all of that is just leading up to, this was the first piece of content that we were going to sell. We needed to figure out how to allow people to pay us for it. We don't have an LMS, so we don't have a platform that we're delivering things from. And luckily, I knew a lot about XCL. So I already knew that we wanted to track who was accessing it, but we knew that we needed a paywall to say, okay, in order to get access to this content, pay us this low price, and then you can get access to the course and the workbook and fun stuff. The complicated thing that Christy and I realized is that we didn't just have one piece of content that was accessible after someone paid. We actually had a workbook and a video. And so we had to figure out how to give people access to two pieces of content, pay us one time. And so we have been in the throes of learning. The good news is that XCL was the easy part. The complicated part was actually figuring out how to get the paywall and the multiple pieces of content in a way that was a good, seamless user experience for folks. And I think that we have landed on, after much trial and practice and testing, something that works for what we're trying to do. So I'll be happy to show that today. And the caveat is we've been literally working on this up until this webinar started. So if anything does not work seamlessly, my apologies. But I think we cracked the code. Christy cracked the code last night. I put everything up on our website today. I think it's working. So we'll be able to show that. But I know, Sarah, that you have written a white paper talking about this, and we can certainly go into some specific use cases and show what we've learned. But maybe start off by talking about why you wrote the white paper, what you wanted to communicate to folks, and then I think we can jump into some examples.
Sure. So I think that the thing that I wanted to do was give people lots of different options for being able to monetize content. Because over the years, we've worked through this process with a ton of build capable clients. So a lot of it depends on starting with what do you already have, then figuring out what pieces are missing, and then how, to your point, Corrine, how does this work into a seamless experience for the person who's taking the training or accessing the content? And those pieces are really important to structure and test out. What I wanted to do was start by figuring out what paywall services are available. Because when you talk about monetizing content, XCL already packages up the content, like you said, Karina. That piece is done. So you have links and QR codes to your heart's content for whatever content you have, and you're going to be able to track everything that happens there. So that part is ready. The part that you need is how do I get the money before I give them the thing? And so there were several different ways that you can do this. Now, I mentioned that we've had WordPress set up for our LearnX API program since the beginning, since it started. And several years ago, we had set up a LearnDash plugin. And LearnDash is like a little mini LMS plugin for WordPress. And it allows you to structure out courses and classes, and it allows you to let people register and get certificates and all that stuff. It's really inexpensive. It's just a little plugin for WordPress. And a lot of people use LearnDash. It's a lightweight way to have an LMS. And so if you were doing like a certificate program or something like that, where you wanted to track it, or you wanted a community, or you wanted something like that, then you could totally do that really inexpensive in WordPress with LearnDash. And that's a great option. And so for LearnX API, there were lots of those elements that we wanted, and that was a simple way to do it. So I didn't have to go out and buy a full-blown market corporate LMS. I could do this with a website and a plugin. And then when we started monetizing LearnX API, we added a Stripe plugin to it and said, okay, once you make the payment, then you can create your account and then you can access the content. The part that we needed to also have was tracking the content in it. So what are all the things that are happening inside of that content? Now you can do that. There is another plugin called Grassblade. So you can do that with Grassblade, but here's the caveat. If you want to track stuff, everything has to be in an e-learning format, which that means if you want to do your video, Karina, or you want to do a workbook or anything like that, you're not going to track any of that stuff. You're just going to be able to track what's happening in e-learning using XAPI. So for a long time, that met our needs fine because all of our stuff was set up as e-learning and we just structured it that way because technically we were forced into it if we wanted to track it without doing a lot of manual work in XAPI. So fast forward to XCL. When XCL came out, we were like, oh my gosh, now we can track anything we want like instantly. So we repackaged all of our LearnX API content in XCL links. We pulled all the stuff out of our LearnDash and we canceled our Grassblade subscription, took that plugin out. And so now we already have the structure on the website. So we just swapped out the content that was in there with XCL links. So you still have the Stripe paywall, you create the account, you access the links, everything else still works the same. And so now I'm getting the data that way. The thing that I thought was super interesting is that in that format, there was someone, I know who it was because of the timestamps, because I can see everything, because I'm tracking everything. There was someone who shared their login to LearnX API. But because I was using XCL, I know the other two people that use their login. So they used this person's login, went in, when they launched the XCL links, I know it was these other two people. So I actually now know that they shared this login. Whereas before, I wouldn't have known that. So there's some interesting things that I found, even if you were using an LMS structure and you're selling content, people are like, I don't want anybody to share this stuff and I don't want them to be giving my stuff away for free. I'm sorry to break it to you, but they already are. People are already there. One person is buying your course and they're sharing it with everybody else. That's how people do things. But if you wanted to know that and you wanted to be able to shut it off if you wanted to, you could do that because you're going to see what's happening inside the content, not just when somebody logs into your site. And I think it's really interesting because then it opens the door to also tracking other types of content. So when I was putting the white paper together to your question, I wanted to explore what other ways could we do this outside of this WordPress setup? Are there other tools that I could use to completely remove the platform altogether? Because our big mantra with XCL is you don't need a platform at all, which is true. You don't. But if you're going to monetize it, you do have to collect a payment at some point. So how do you do that and then get them the links? So there were a few different options that we explored, and I'm going to publish this white paper out after this exclusive so that everyone has access to all these steps and all these links. But there was an option called Gumroad, and Gumroad is just a tool. It's a monetization tool for content creators, and it allows you to basically set up all your XCL links as the thing that people are buying, and then they check out, and when they buy it, they get access to all the links. So they get access to a page of links. So you could just basically structure your course in a Word document or a PDF, right? Or directly in their site. They have an HTML page. So that's super easy. And you're able to set that up and then sell it to people all day long. And that makes it pretty automated. Another option that I found was called PayHip. And what I liked about that is that they also can handle managing the taxes on it. And so that was really interesting. It was very similar to Gumroad. So it's similar kind of setup. So you can sell these downloads or even subscriptions. That was another thing that we were looking at. I was like, oh, you could have a subscription to a program and then get links over time. So that's another thing, which would also be great for space learning. So there are some things that you could do there. Sendowl was another one, and that actually has expiring links, like one-time access links. So if you've ever bought something through, an example I thought of was like Etsy. So if you buy a digital thing through Etsy, it gives you a one-time link, and then once you use the link, it burns, and so you can't access it again, which might help with a little extra level of security for not having a bunch of link sharing. Now, could people still get your XCL links and share it? Sure. But again, you're going to know because you'll see that a whole bunch of people were doing the exact same thing at the same time. So you could always shut that link off if you wanted to. So those were some of the ones. There were others that actually did require an account and a login, and I was trying to stay away from those. I included one in here just for posterity that you can compare. But most of what I chose to include in the white paper were different monetization tools for content creators where you could go out and set this up. But going back to my original statement, why would I use an XCL link at all if I could just package my content directly in these tools and you could buy it? So, Kareen, like your video and your workbook, you could put it directly in these tools. And then when people buy it, they get access to it, right? But
Sure.
there are
Yeah.
two reasons why you wouldn't do that. One is you can't control it and shut it off. So once people have it, they have it. They have your actual video and your actual workbook. It's not behind a link. Now, could they get it anyway? Sure. But it gives you an extra level to shut off. The second thing is that you wouldn't be able to track anything inside of it. So you don't know if anybody ever even looked at your video or workbook after they bought it. Now, maybe you don't care because all you cared about was selling it. If that's the case, then maybe you don't need it. But if you actually want to know, are people using this? Are they doing anything in it? Then you're going to want that extra tracking.
Yes, I want the tracking. And I do think that to your point, Sarah, and not that this is my primary concern, but I think it is important that as you're publishing content, it's your product, it's what you're bringing to market. This, in many cases, is your business. And so you don't want people to have free open access to sharing content. And to your point, there's always ways around it, and shame on those people for stealing other people's stuff. But I think just having the ability to track and see who's logging in, who's accessing, is a really big benefit to content creators or folks that want to be able to sell any content product, really, but specifically learning content. You want to see how people are using it. You want to see what's valuable. You want that deeper level of detail, even in a video, even in a PDF, than you'd be able to get with any other tool.
Yeah, you brought up a good observation that I was just thinking of, is that this is all content creators, right? Let's say you have a YouTube channel and you're making your money through YouTube monetization. So ads, whatever. What if you had, I don't know, maybe it's a workbook, or maybe it's a special video, or maybe it's some e-learning, or maybe it's a site page with some resources. What if you're that YouTube creator and you now want to monetize access to that? Could you have a way to push someone through a monetization channel from your YouTube channel to say, hey, go pay for this directly instead of me just making money off ads? It expands the access to that, but it also gives you the data of what's happening and what they're doing. So I think it's really interesting to think about this outside of the learning space too. How can I sell, I don't know, how could I sell a white paper, a report? What are these things that we create? Because a lot of folks give a lot of content away for free in social media tools. I see it on LinkedIn, I see it on YouTube. People are giving their content away for free all the time. And those channels, there's there's a marketing element of that, why that is useful to people, because that's how you build your community. But for folks who have built a community, do you want to continue to have that be your only channel of monetization? And that's a question you would ask yourself. So I think there are a lot of other things outside of just teaching people, although I know that's why we're here today, but there are
That's what we
definitely
do.
other opportunities.
So I like that you brought up the free content for marketing and the paid content for business value, because that's what we did. We did both, actually. We have some free content alongside the paid content. And when we launched the free content, we didn't have to think so much about this paywall challenge and the gating and the tracking we wanted. So, of course, we used XCL for the free content so we could get that data. But when we launched the paid courses, it was an extra layer of like, how do we figure this out? All right, do you want to see what we did? I'm a little nervous to show you.
Well, I think this is working out loud. This is what I was talking to Melissa Milloway about last night, right? Is that
Yeah.
can we start to show the stuff that we did to get to where we were?
I wish Christy and I would have recorded over the last 48 hours everything we tried. And then we're like, that didn't work right, or that's a bad user experience, or that's awkward. So many things we learned. So a caveat before I show you, we used Canva for our website design and to build the content assets. So those are all Canva tool creations, which you'll see in a second. And then we use Stripe for our payment wall. So you'll see how this goes. I'm going to walk you through how this goes. And then Christy, if you want to share any lessons learned along the way, and then we'll show the data at the end with XCL, because it's this full throughput of what we can do. Okay, so I will share.
Karina, as you bring it up, I also think it would be interesting to show the ChatGPT history and what it got right and what it got wrong in giving me advice on how I
my
should do
goodness.
this.
We've done a lot. Okay, so this is a page in our website, and this is the free asset. This was what we launched earlier, which is the maturity model for organizations who are implementing AI technology. Check it out, free access, little plug for ourselves. But this is the meaty stuff. So if you look at that asset and you say, that's great, but I want to figure out how to use it for my organization. Like the white paper is information, but it's not really how to apply it in your organization. So we recorded a course walking through the tool, and we created a workbook so that someone could take that model and apply it to their business and think about what it means and start to assess their organization's maturity across a few different lenses. Great. We got 2 things. We want people to buy it. I just added this note at the bottom to give people a little bit of expectation of what's going to happen, because the way we set it up, which you'll see in a second, is that after you purchase it, Stripe has an auto download ability that you can give them access. And I mentioned before that we had 2 different things that we're giving them. So if it was just one thing, they could have just downloaded that thing. And that would have been great. But of course, we had to make it complicated. So it's going to download what you just mentioned, Sarah, a page with the links that people can access the content. So we're going to buy this. We're going to complete the order. Great. Can you see that the little download thing showed up? Okay. In my downloads folder, I just got a link, which leads to a page. It's got the links. These are the XCL links. It's going to open either the video, which is the course link, or the workbook link, which is a PDF file. And then I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to show you what shows up on the XCL side. So since we've been testing this, we have a little bit of data, Christy and myself and my husband, who has been doing some testing for us. So I'm just going to go over to XCL. And as you can see, this was the video. No, this is actually our free asset. So we've all tested this. This is the workbook, which we've started to test. And we've got an activity stream that is basically showing all of our content viewed, completed. Christy, you've been doing a lot of testing. So a lot of activity from Christy as we've been going through our pros and cons and like figuring out the system that we wanted. But all of that is to say, you saw how easy it was. We have a link on our website. You go to the paywall. It downloads a page. You can access the content from there. And then we can see who accesses the content, because when you go into either the workbook or the course, you have to enter your name, your email address, and I think your organization in order to open the file. That was the one thing that I didn't show, was actually like once you click the link, you get the XCL landing page so that we can start to track. In this instance, Christy kept accessing the content millions of times. And then you can start to gauge whether or not, was Christy supposed to access this much? Yes, she is a known entity and she's probably going to test this every day. You can start to see what people are doing. And it wasn't a super clunky flow to get from pay to content. And they have then that persistent document.
And one of the things that I think is interesting about this is that there were no e-learning tools required. You had a video, you had a PDF, and you have your landing page that people essentially buy through that Stripe paywall is just a PDF with links in it to the buttons, right? So each button is just an XCL link that is going out to launch that actual page. So from a functionality perspective and accessibility perspective, that's all appropriate because the button is launching the content. I think the other interesting thing about this is that when y'all launch this, you're going to immediately see who's downloading my free resource, who's accessing this stuff. Is it just sitting out there? Now, could you track that with Google Analytics? Sure, you could do that, and you would get some roll-up information. One of the things that we do is we use our web analytics alongside our XCL analytics because they're giving us 2 different types of information. One is like usage from the browser. The other one is actual user actions inside the content. So those 2 things together tell us a much broader picture of what's happening than just if I was tracking one or the other.
So we did that. We did that thing. We like put up a paywall. We created content. We used XCL. I think from like start to finish, we used very few tools. We used Canva and Zoom to record our video and XCL to package things up. We have our files stored so that we can access them and make edits to them. One of the things I've already done is now that we have the XCL link, if we need to switch out other content, we can, because the link is persistent, so we can make updates. It's
Yes.
super, super easy from a content manager perspective to use the XCL links to do all of the tracking post creation. And once we figured out that flow from purchase to access, it was really simple. The tool itself is so beneficial in making sure you don't have to invest in a platform. You don't have to pay for a bunch of technology and platform investment to be able to launch paid content. I think it's fantastic.
Jacob actually had a great question in the chat, just to clarify. So the landing page that you purchased through that Stripe paywall, so you went out to your website, you hit buy now, it launches the Stripe purchase process, you fill out your payment information, and then when you're done purchasing it, it gives you the download of the PDF, which has the links to the video. And so that has the XCL links on it, Jacob. So you're purchasing essentially a PDF download. So the way they had it set up visually is that PDF looks almost like its own little landing page, but it had two buttons on it. So one for the video course and one for the work. And both of those were XCL links essentially behind the button. I love the point that you made, Corrine, about when you have to change content, you don't have to go in and update that PDF or anything to that process. That's all set. All you have to do is go out to XCL and swap out the content, because the link doesn't change. So you can update things to your heart's content and not have to completely redo that process, which is always a nightmare.
I want to share one lesson learned and maybe a suggestion for the product team at Canva. The thing that we couldn't figure out that we wanted to do was to be able to link to a hidden page on the Canva site, because Canva allows you to hide web pages. And within its site, it allows you to link to sections within those hidden pages so that you can create user experiences and flows. What we wanted to do was create a page on the Canva website that after you left Stripe, you would go to that web page, but Canva doesn't allow you to do that. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. Can you link to a hidden page to create the landing page just within Canva? And what we settled on was the PDF download. So I think it works. And depending on what website you're using and what tools you're using for your website, maybe that's another option, is to have a hidden web page or a landing page where you can go and link to those links from the website itself. We didn't have that option. We opted for the PDF download, and I think that works. But for anyone out there attempting this, check that out. We wanted that to work. It just didn't with Canva.
Well, maybe in the white paper, you take a look at some options like Zapier and automations that allow you to implement that, some of these things. So there are a lot of options when you have things broken down into pieces, so that you can work with the pieces the way that you want. I'm really excited to share the white paper. I'm excited that everyone joined today. I would love to hear how you all are implementing this and how you set up your own stuff based on your own learning ecosystem or your own business setup. We will see you all next month for our next exclusive. It's the last Thursday of the month now, right? Last Thursday. So we will see you all again soon. Thank you so much for joining.